Hello family, welcome to Stories by Tochi. We bring you interesting folk tales. Please subscribe and drop a like for us. This generosity would go a long way for us. Also share to family and friends. And please turn on post notification to stay tuned for more. Thank you as you do so. Now let's get into the story. The heat in Uyo that week felt like a stubborn fever, thick in the air, clinging to skin, the type that makes even your thoughts feel sticky. Anita Edem sat cross-legged on the floor of her small but tidy apartment, eyes locked on her phone screen, its bluish light casting strange shadows across her cheekbones. The air conditioner in the corner buzzed, but gave little relief. Her YouTube channel analytics page looked like a dying heartbeat, flatlining. Views had dropped steadily for the last 3 months. What used to be thousands of eager fans flooding her gadget review videos had dwindled into awkward silence and a handful of sympathy comments. Her most recent upload, a review of a Bluetooth mini speaker shaped like a pineapple, had only managed 194 views in 4 days. Even worse, no shares. No traction. Nothing. She scrolled further, biting her lip. She'd tried everything, more hashtags, better editing, giveaways. The algorithms refused to play in her favor. Her laughter, once genuine, now came with the hollow ring of performance. Fame, she was beginning to learn, could be a slow-burning candle. And hers was nearly out. Her phone buzzed, another notification from TikTok. She ignored it at first, assuming it was another trend she'd missed, another sound everyone had moved on from while she was still figuring out the last one. But this wasn't like the others. A video autoplayed without her touch. The lighting was dim, almost brownish, like the filter was made of old film. A hand unwrapped a toy slowly, fingers shaking just a little. The creature that emerged looked like something between a forest imp and a dream you only half remember. Its wide eyes were rimmed with soft pink, its teeth jagged but playful, its head large and tilted slightly like it was listening. The caption read, Labubu Rare Edition, it moved on its own. Anita watched the video 3 times. Each time, she noticed something new. The way the toy seemed to grin wider between cuts, the soft, almost imperceptible sound of breathing behind the camera, the nervous laughter that didn't feel scripted. In the comment section, dozens were begging to know where to buy it. A few replies dropped vague mentions of a Telegram group. That was all it took. Anita's fingers moved quickly, opening Telegram, searching keywords. After several minutes, she found it, a group called Plastic Whisper. Entry was private, invite only. But oddly, the join button was still active. The group was eerily silent. No welcome message. No emojis. No banter. Just listings. Pictures of toys, mostly grotesque versions of popular collectibles, each one stranger than the last. Some wore sewn shut mouths. Others had extra eyes or limbs made of wood. But one post caught her eye instantly. It had been posted just an hour earlier. A photo of a pink-eyed Labubu, mouth slightly open as if mid-laugh, its fur matted as though it had been kept in a damp place. The caption simply read, "One left. Not for display. For the brave." No price. No details. Anita hesitated only for a moment before clicking on the seller's handle, at the gatekeeper_91. His profile photo was a black circle. No bio. Just an automated reply that read, "Serious buyers only. No refunds. No second thoughts." She messaged him. Within minutes, he responded. The price was steep, 48,000 naira, plus delivery. She hesitated. It was nearly all she had left after rent, but the hunger in her chest drowned reason. That familiar flame of content creators' desperation, the itch to go viral, was rekindled. She paid. The seller asked for no address. He only said, "It will find you by tomorrow evening. Do not feed it attention. Don't say its name out loud." Then the chat vanished. Deleted. The entire group dissolved from her screen like smoke. The following evening a knock came, not at the door but the window. Anita froze. Her room was on the 2nd floor, facing the backyard. She got up, heart thudding, and opened the curtain just slightly. No one. But something lay on the balcony's ledge. A parcel, wrapped in thick brown paper and bound with twine. No delivery man in sight. No note. Just the box waiting. She opened it slowly with the scissors she used for unboxing shoots. The toy inside was smaller than expected, no bigger than a soft drink bottle. Its fur was a muted brown, like it had been dyed with ash. The eyes, those famous pink-rimmed eyes, seemed to shimmer faintly in the fading daylight. Its mouth was slightly ajar, showing tiny, cartoonish teeth. Anita picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. She turned it around, expecting some sort of brand name, serial number, anything. But there was nothing. Just smooth rubber and fur. Something about the way it sat in her palm made her stomach churn, like it was sitting too still, as though waiting for something. She took a deep breath, grabbed her camera tripod, and began setting up her lights. If this didn't bring her channel back to life, nothing would. She placed the toy on her desk, turned on the camera, and hit record. The glow from her ring light hummed gently, casting a perfect circle of warmth around the desk where the toy sat. Anita adjusted her camera lens and framed the shot. For a few seconds, she stared into the viewfinder, watching the Labubu's glassy pink eyes catch the light like a gemstone submerged in syrup. Its teeth, though painted on, seemed unnervingly precise, each one small and uneven like they had been carved, not molded. She cleared her throat, did a quick test run of her opening line, then tapped the record button. Her voice came out softer than usual, a little too careful. "Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got something truly weird for you." She smiled, but her eyes flicked to the toy between takes, just slightly. It wasn't fear. Not yet. More like the feeling of trying to explain a bad dream. You're fine, but something sits beneath the surface like a nail under skin. She finished recording and sat back, stretching her arms, her joints popping like dry twigs. Normally, she would jump straight into editing, but a yawn forced its way through her mouth, thick and sudden. She chalked it up to not sleeping well the night before. She left the toy on the desk and went to wash her face. By the time she returned from the bathroom, the toy had moved. It was small, barely noticeable, but it had definitely shifted. Instead of facing the camera directly, it now angled slightly left, its head turned as though caught mid-glance. Anita blinked. Maybe she bumped the table on her way out. She knelt to check. The tripod was still steady. The lighting hadn't shifted. Nothing else had been disturbed. She looked back at the toy and gave a nervous laugh, the kind people give when they're trying to dismiss their own thoughts. With a sigh, she transferred her footage to her laptop and began editing. As the footage played, she noticed something odd in the first 10 seconds. Just before she began to speak, the toy's head appeared to tilt a few millimeters forward, then stop. She scrubbed back, rewatched. Same movement. She slowed the footage to half speed, then quarter speed. There it was, the toy shifted as if nodding. She sat still for a long time, fingers off the keyboard, letting the room grow quiet again. Yuyo's evening breeze pushed gently against the window curtains, brushing them like soft fingers across cloth. The air felt thick, not warm exactly, but heavy. Her chest tightened slightly. Not fear, not yet. Something smaller, subtler. Like the air in the room was watching her. She uploaded the edited video later that night. Within the hour, comments poured in. The first 10 were typical. "This toy is creepy, but I love it. Where did you buy it? Omo. Pink eyes day fear me oh." But then someone commented, "Pause at 0:23. The toy moves." Another wrote, "I swear the eyes followed her when she turned away. Anyone else see that?" Anita read them, heart knocking gently against her ribs. She clicked on the timestamp. She watched again. This time, she noticed something different. At 0:23, the toy's jaw opened a bit wider than it had been when she unboxed it. She remembered looking directly at it the whole time, yet somehow missed that change in real time. It didn't make sense. She checked the toy again. Still on her desk, still sitting calmly, but now it leaned a little to the side, one leg outstretched further than before. She frowned. Her window was closed. There hadn't been any draft, and she hadn't touched it since filming. She picked it up to inspect it more closely. As her fingers wrapped around its torso, she felt a strange resistance, not from weight, but from a kind of subtle vibration, like holding an old phone just before it buzzes. She pulled her hand away, unsettled. Something about the toy's skin, rubber, maybe silicone, felt too warm. She placed it back and closed her laptop. That night, sleep refused to come gently. Anita tossed between sheets, her fan squeaking at every full rotation, the steady whirring becoming unbearable. At some point past 2 a.m., she sat up abruptly, drenched in sweat despite the fan's efforts. A sound had pulled her from sleep. Not a bang, not a voice, but something quieter. A sharp click, like a switch flipping on, followed by a high-pitched giggle, so faint she couldn't tell if it came from outside her window or from inside her mind. She turned on her lamp. The toy was still on the desk, but it was facing the window now. She hadn't left it that way. She walked toward it, each step unsure. She lifted it again and searched underneath, expecting to find a sound button, a speaker, anything. There was nothing but the texture of molded plastic. No seams, no switches. Her phone lit up with a new message, Bassie. He had sent a voice note. Anita, I don't know if you've posted yet, but please don't film that thing again. Something about it isn't right. I don't know how to explain it, but I had a dream last night, and it... Anita, please call me. She stared at the message, her throat dry. Then another noise. This time it wasn't subtle. It was 3 clear taps on her window pane. Tap, tap, tap. She froze. Her building was on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony on that side. The next morning came like a sluggish breath after holding panic underwater. Anita sat hunched at the edge of her bed, still in the clothes she wore the day before. Her room, usually a bright blend of yellow walls and neatly stacked equipment, felt unfamiliar, as though someone had tilted the air just slightly, making it heavy in odd corners. Sunlight crept in with reluctance, muted by the drawn curtains. The Labubu toy sat exactly where she left it on the desk. But the air around it felt wrong. It wasn't about sight anymore, it was about presence. The kind you don't see, but feel. Something about the space the toy occupied now seemed deeper than its size allowed, like it was holding something bigger inside. She hadn't slept. The tapping on the window the night before had never repeated, but she hadn't dared to open it to check. Her mind circled the possibilities, birds, tree branches, maybe even wind, but none of those reached the 2nd floor, not from that angle. She didn't want to turn the toy around. Didn't want to touch it again. But it sat there silent like a dare. Anita had never been one to believe in spirits or omens. Even growing up in a home where her mother sprinkled salt at corners and whispered Ibabio prayers when the night thundered too loudly, she had always rolled her eyes and turned back to her cartoons. But this wasn't superstition. This felt like fact. Something unexplainable was tethered to that thing, and it was tightening. She grabbed her phone to call Bassie but stopped. What would she even say? That a toy might be haunting her? That a smile too wide was beginning to feel alive? She knew how it sounded. Instead, she opened her laptop and rewatched the last video. The comments were multiplying. Some viewers had clipped strange moments, flickers of movement, changes in lighting, even what one swore looked like a second shadow behind her during the unboxing. The most recent comment made her skin crawl. Look closely at 146. The doll's mouth opens wider than before, and it doesn't close again. Anita clicked the timestamp. She held her breath. The playback was subtle, but undeniable. A slight shift in the plastic mouth. Not a glitch. Not a jump cut. The toy's teeth were more visible in the second half of the video than they were in the first. She paused, zoomed in. The teeth were sharper now. Not cartoonish anymore. More like bone. She backed away from the desk and sat on the floor, knees tucked to her chest. The thought came uninvited. Maybe it was all in her head. Maybe stress was chewing holes through her logic. But that logic had already been perforated days ago, and doubt was no longer enough to plug the growing silence around her. She remembered something her grandmother once told her during a harmattan evening in Aikidoku. When a thing smiles without reason, it's either mad or hiding teeth meant for biting. That memory, buried in dust and time, rose with uncomfortable clarity. She opened her contacts and dialed Bassie. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was groggy but steady. I was about to call you, he said. Anita, I had a weird dream last night. She froze. What kind? She asked. There was a forest, he said, exhaling sharply. Burnt trees. Ash falling like snow. And something laughing, like a child, but not really. It kept whispering, open the gate. Open the gate. I don't know what it means, but it felt connected to that toy you showed me. Anita's fingers trembled. She hadn't told him anything about her dreams. Not the forest. Not the whispers. Nothing. I need to see you, she said. Today. An hour later, Bassie arrived at her apartment, eyes wary, jaw set. He stepped in and looked around, gaze landing instantly on the toy. It was still in its usual spot, but something about its presence made him flinch. He didn't sit. Instead, he walked toward it slowly, like approaching a sleeping snake. It's different, he murmured. It wasn't like this before. Anita nodded. It moves on its own, she whispered. I've caught it shifting positions. And the mouth, it's opening wider. I can feel it watching me. She didn't care how crazy she sounded anymore. The evidence was pressing in from every side. Do you still have the contact for the seller? He asked. No. He vanished. The group's gone too. Bassie stepped back, rubbing his forehead. I know someone. A friend of my cousin in Ikono. They say she deals with things like this. I never believed her stories, but now, He paused. Now I'm not sure what to believe. Anita nodded slowly. Her throat was tight. Let's go, she said. I don't want to spend another night with that thing in this apartment. As they prepared to leave, she turned for one last glance. The toy was still there, but its eyes seemed duller. Not dead. Watching. Waiting. The road to Ikono stretched like an old proverb, long, cracked in places, and whispering warnings through the rustling of dry trees. Anita sat beside Bassi in the passenger seat of his aging Corolla, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She hadn't spoken much since they left Yuyo. Her mind kept circling the same memory, the tapping at her window, the dream of the scorched forest, the way the Labubu's mouth had widened in the video without any human touch. Every minute they spent driving deeper into Aqua Ibom felt like stepping into a story she would have mocked just weeks ago. Now, with each passing tree and empty field, the weight of the toy's presence seemed to stretch even across distance. Bassi kept his eyes on the road, though she noticed him glancing at the rearview mirror more than usual. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both felt it, like something might be following just behind the car out of sight. When they finally turned onto a red earth road, leading into a village bordered by thick vegetation, Anita's stomach clenched. Ahead was a house, low and wide, the walls painted in a pale color that had faded into the surrounding bush. A chicken darted across their path. Smoke coiled lazily from a firepot nearby. A woman stood in front of the doorway, unmoving, watching them approach like she had been expecting them for years. She didn't smile. She didn't greet them. She simply turned and walked inside without a word, her white wrapper brushing the dusty floor behind her. Bassi looked at Anita, as if silently asking if she still wanted to go through with it. Anita nodded once. Inside the house, the air shifted. It was cooler, but not from a fan or breeze. It felt damp, like breath had soaked the walls. The room was small, with no furniture except for a woven mat, a single stool, and an open calabash bowl filled with water. Herbs hung from the ceiling in tight bundles, and clay pots lined the walls like silent watchers. The woman sat on the mat and motioned for them to do the same. Her face was marked with thin scars across her cheeks, the kind passed down through lineage and ritual, not violence. When she finally spoke, her voice was dry but firm. You brought something that does not belong here. Anita opened her mouth to explain, but the woman raised a hand. I've already seen it, she said. Before you came. I saw it walking in my dreams, dragging its smile across the ash. You've opened part of the gate. Now it's looking for a way to step through fully. Anita felt her stomach drop. What gate? She asked, barely above a whisper. The woman dipped her fingers into the calabash and let the water drip slowly back in. There are things created not by God, not by man, but by want, she said. Desire can build doors just as easily as hands can. And your need for attention, it was enough to crack one open. Anita's voice trembled when she finally spoke again. How do I close it? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood, walking to one of the clay pots. She removed its lid and pulled out a bundle wrapped in palm fronds. She placed it carefully on the mat before Anita and unwrapped it. Inside lay a handful of white chalk, a thin red thread, and a black stone carved with a face, wide-eyed, open-mouthed, with sharp grooves for teeth. The toy you brought home is a vessel, the woman said. But it isn't alive. Not yet. It is a shell. What waits to enter it is older than any name. This face, she pointed to the stone, was once used to trap that kind of spirit centuries ago. But it was buried, forgotten, until someone started making copies. Innocent enough at first. But one day, someone carved it just right, and it remembered itself. Anita stared at the stone. What do I do with it? She asked. The woman leaned closer. You must stop showing it, she said. Stop letting people look at it. Each eye that sees it feeds it. Each share, each comment, each laugh, it drinks from them like blood. You must isolate it. Starve it of attention. Wrap it in silence. Anita's heart raced. But it's already in people's phones. It's out there. The woman's eyes darkened. Then it's already grown. And you must act quickly, or it will not need a toy to walk anymore. They left just before nightfall, the sun bleeding its last color into the sky like a wound that wouldn't close. Anita held the bundle the woman had given her with both hands, careful not to let the carved stone touch her skin. Bassi drove faster this time, as if distance itself might protect them from whatever had been conjured. Neither spoke for most of the journey back. The silence between them wasn't heavy, but expectant, like the air before rain. As they re-entered the town, Anita's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared. You shouldn't have shown it fear. She gasped, showing Bassi the screen. He looked down, lips tightening. Block it, he said. And turn off your data. No more videos. No more posts. Anita obeyed, but dread settled into her spine. The message hadn't come through WhatsApp, Instagram, or any social platform. It came as a raw SMS, no profile, no trace. She deleted it and shut off the phone completely. At her apartment, everything looked untouched. But the moment she stepped inside, she knew something had changed. The lights flickered briefly. The air was colder. She approached her desk slowly. The toy sat exactly where it had been left. But now it faced the door. Its hands, once molded tight to its sides, were now splayed slightly outward, and a thin line of something red stained the edge of its mouth. Not blood, but not pain either. Something that hadn't been there before. Anita didn't sleep that night, not because she didn't want to, but because the apartment refused to let her. The shadows seemed to lean closer now, moving in ways shadows shouldn't, bending with the weight of something unseen. The air had grown thick, like breath soaked in old steam, and every corner of the room felt dense with eyes. She had turned off every light and unplugged every socket, but somehow the desk lamp flicked on by itself at 2:13 a.m., its pale light falling directly onto the Labubu toy, as if summoned to perform. She stared at it from her bed, wrapped in her bedsheet like armor, whispering silent prayers she hadn't recited since her secondary school days. The toy didn't move, not in the obvious sense, but something had changed in its stillness. It was the way its head now leaned slightly forward, almost as if listening, or waiting. The silence became unbearable, broken only by the occasional creak of her wardrobe or the random tick of the ceiling as it settled. She tried to tell herself it was all her imagination, that the stress and sleeplessness had sown hallucinations into her mind. But deep down, the truth pulsed in her like a second heartbeat. The toy was no longer just a thing. It had become an extension of something else, something patient, something hungry, and something very aware. The next morning arrived without promise. The sky outside her window was unusually gray, not cloudy, but dull, like it had been smeared with ash. Even the birds seemed to have left. Anita packed the red thread, the white chalk, and the carved black stone into a small leather pouch and slipped it into her bag. She wore long sleeves, as if it could protect her from whatever was watching. Her mind circled the advice from the woman in Ikono. Cut it off, isolate it, starve it of attention. She had deleted the video, removed every Labubu-related post from her page, cleared her backup files, and deactivated comments. But it was like trying to empty the sea with a spoon. People had already downloaded the video, reposted it, dissected it. A follower even tagged her in a reaction video the night before, laughing at the toy, pausing it mid-frame, and zooming in on its expression. Anita had reported the clip, but it was too late. That door the woman spoke of, it was no longer cracking. It was opening. Slowly, yes. But surely. Bassi had offered to let her stay with him until things calmed down, and she agreed. Not out of hope, but out of fear that staying in her apartment one more night would pull her too far into whatever was unfolding. She placed the toy inside a sealed box lined with dried bitter leaf and wrapped it in a black cloth, binding it tightly with the red thread. She didn't say a word to it. Not a curse, not a whisper. She just sealed it, then whispered to herself, "You don't belong to me. I don't belong to you." When she arrived at Bassi's flat in Hewitt Housing, he was already waiting outside, his face drawn, like someone who had stared at the same nightmare too many nights in a row. He took the box from her carefully, his hands shaking just slightly as he set it down inside the guest room, locking the door immediately. "We won't go in there unless we have to," he said quietly. Anita nodded. Inside, his niece, Ekim, who was barely 8, was seated in the living room drawing on sheets of white paper with wax crayons. She looked up when Anita walked in and gave a small wave before returning to her artwork. But something about her stillness, her focus, felt off. Too precise. Too quiet. Anita leaned over to see what she was drawing. The page was covered in rows of repeating images, wide grins, pink-rimmed eyes, small claws. The face was unmistakable. Ekim had drawn the Labubu toy, over and over again. Anita's breath caught in her chest. "Ekim," she said softly, "where did you see this?" The little girl didn't look up. "It comes at night," she whispered, still coloring. "It plays in my dreams. It said its name is Tiki. It says Auntie Anita shouldn't run anymore." Anita turned to Bassi, her voice cracking. "Did she see the video?" "No," he said instantly. "She doesn't even use my phone. She's been staying with my sister until yesterday." Anita felt the room shift again. The the way a gut turns before vomiting. The toy wasn't just inside her life anymore. It had found new roads, new eyes. That night, sleep didn't come. Not for Bassie, not for Anita, and certainly not for Ekam, who stood by her bedroom door just before midnight, her eyes glassy and distant, whispering something that sounded like a rhyme. Bassie led her back to bed and tucked her in, but she wouldn't close her eyes. "He says it's almost time," she muttered, clinging to her pillow. "He says one more video, and he can come out properly." Anita sat in the living room, staring at the locked guest room door, her palms cold. The warning from Ikono replayed in her head like a broken recording. It doesn't need to be seen by many. It only needs to be wanted. And the more people tried to explain it away, called it a hoax, a stunt, the more the desire to see it grew. Every skeptic was another eye. Every eye was another invitation. The line between myth and presence had blurred beyond return. Around 3 a.m., her phone, though powered off, lit up briefly. The screen remained black, except for a single notification that blinked against the darkness. Go live. Just once. She dropped the phone instantly. It wasn't even on. The battery had died earlier that day. Bassie saw the look on her face and said nothing. But they both knew what the message meant. The toy had fed on visibility before, but now it wanted more than attention. It wanted acknowledgement. It wanted belief. And it was no longer asking. The next morning brought no sunlight. Just a dim, cloudless sky hanging low over the town like a lid, pressing the streets into silence. It was the kind of stillness Anita hadn't felt before. Not empty, not peaceful, but expectant, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Bassie had gone out early to get some herbs the woman in Ikono had mentioned, bitter cola, ground ogbono bark, and powdered chalk, and left her alone in the flat with Ekam still asleep and the box still locked inside the guest room. Anita moved slowly through the hallway, her feet dragging over the tiles as though her body carried more weight than it used to. Each corner of the house had started to echo. Sounds didn't bounce anymore, they lingered. When she spoke aloud, her voice felt detached, like it belonged to someone watching from above. She passed the guest room and paused. The door had scratches along the bottom now, faint but new. 3 lines. No more than a few inches long. They hadn't been there the day before. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, drawn to it with a mix of curiosity and dread, but she forced herself to keep walking. She tried distracting herself by cleaning the living room, organizing shelves that didn't need organizing, opening windows that only let in more heat. But even in movement, her mind stayed fixed on one thing: how little control she had left over what was unfolding. She turned on the tap in the kitchen to rinse her hands and noticed, for the first time, the water ran warm despite the cold tank outside. When she touched it, the heat didn't burn, but it didn't feel natural either. It felt like touching breath. Her skin tingled after each drop. She turned it off, wiped her hands, and stared into the reflection in the kitchen window. Her face looked gaunt, older, as if she'd aged in the span of one sleepless week. Her eyes were sunken, the bags beneath them forming purple crescents. But what froze her in place wasn't her own reflection. It was the reflection of the hallway behind her. In it, the guest room door was open. Slowly, she turned around, heart climbing up her throat like a trapped bird. The door was still shut. Exactly how it had been a moment ago. But something had shifted. She could feel it. It wasn't about what she was seeing anymore. It was about what she knew without needing proof. Something inside that room had grown bold. Not louder, just braver. Its hunger was no longer waiting. Her phone, still lying dead on the coffee table, buzzed once. Just once. No screen light. No sound. She picked it up, and as soon as her fingers touched the back of the device, she felt the vibration run up her arm like a warning. Or a pulse. When Bassie returned, he didn't knock. He opened the door with a force that startled even Ekam, who had begun humming strange tunes to herself while drawing more of those endless grinning faces. He dropped the bundle of herbs on the center table, breathless, and said, "We have to end it tonight. No more delay." Anita nodded. Her voice had begun to vanish beneath the weight of everything unsaid. They didn't need a plan, they needed a decision. She brought out the red cloth again, unwrapped the carving from the woman in Ikono, and placed it beside the sealed box. Ekam suddenly stood and pointed at it. "It knows," she said simply. "It doesn't like the stone." Bassie looked at her, then at Anita. "We burn it. We bury the remains with this stone." Anita didn't answer. Something inside her already knew that fire alone wasn't enough. The toy had not just grown through visibility, it had rooted itself in memory. Even if they destroyed it physically, Parts of it remained etched in the digital echoes of the world. But perhaps silence was still a weapon. Perhaps the one thing it could not survive was absence. Anita reached for the box, her fingers trembling as they untied the red thread. She opened it, and for the first time she didn't flinch. The toy was no longer smiling. Its mouth had closed, but its eyes glistened with something like awareness, and its limbs, though frozen, gave off the tension of a body waiting for a signal. She wrapped it again, tighter this time, and followed Bassie out into the backyard. The fire took time to start. The breeze had returned, blowing through the yard in soft, irregular patterns like whispers skipping across leaves. Bassie poured a ring of chalk around the small pit they'd dug, while Anita added the bitter cola and herbs. The toy, still wrapped, sat quietly at the center. No sound, no twitch, not even a flicker of resistance. But just as Bassie struck the match, the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Dead still. And in that silence, the wrapped bundle began to twitch. Once. Then twice. A sharp, high-pitched giggle burst from within the cloth, shrill and small, like a child trapped in a closet. But neither of them moved. Bassie dropped the match. The cloth caught slowly, the flames licking it with caution, then rising with sudden greed. The giggle turned to something deeper. A low hum that vibrated through the earth, up their feet, into their lungs. And then silence again. Not the expectant kind. Final. Settled. They didn't speak. Just watched it burn until the shape no longer held, until it became nothing but black ash curled inside the pit. Anita took the carved stone and placed it carefully atop the smoldering remains. The ground beneath it sizzled softly, then went quiet. When they looked up, Ekam stood at the back door, no longer humming. Her drawing had changed. It was now a sketch of the backyard, with a fire in the center and two figures standing over it, Anita and Bassie. The toy was gone from her pages. Its face, for the first time, absent. Not everything trending is meant for you. Be careful what you open your heart and your eyes to, because not all that glitters online carries light. Some things feed on your attention, and others feed on your silence. Protect your peace. Guard your space. And never chase clout at the cost of your soul. May your eyes never settle on what is meant to destroy you. May your hands never receive what your spirit cannot carry. May your home be a dwelling of peace, not fear. May you rise above every unseen battle, and may no voice in darkness ever answer when your name is called. May your dreams be sweet, your path be clear, and may no hidden force ever find a home near you. From now till forever, your joy is protected, your mind is shielded, and your life is covered in divine light. If you believe it, say a powerful amen. Hope you enjoyed this interesting story. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications. See you on our next story.